Have you ever looked at a parent's or a grandparent's pill box and just felt completely overwhelmed? It's not just how many pills there are. The real danger, it turns out, is a hidden complexity we almost never talk about. And today, we're diving into the incredible research of Professor Sunmin Lee, who set out to uncover this very mystery, all for the sake of patient safety.
So let's make this personal for a second. How complicated is your daily medication routine? Or maybe that of someone you care about? It's so easy to think, yeah, I've got a handle on it. But as we're about to find out, the reality for millions is way more complicated than it looks on the surface.
Okay, let's put a number on this problem, and it is a big one. 86.4%. That's the absolutely staggering percentage of elderly Koreans who are taking 5 or more different medications every single day. This is called polypharmacy, and it's basically setting the stage for a massive and usually invisible health crisis.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to ask, does more pills automatically mean it's more complex? Then we'll look at how you can even measure something so invisible. We'll follow Professor Lee's journey, see how a new tool called the MRCIK came to be, and then, the really exciting part, we'll uncover what it found and what it means for all of us.
All right, let's dive right into that first big question. When we're talking about medicine, is it really as simple as more pills, more problems? You'd think the answer is an obvious yes, but believe me, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
And here's why. See, on one hand, you've got the number of meds. That's simple, right? You can just count them. But on the other hand, you've got what's called regimen complexity. And this is the tricky part. It's about all the instructions. Is it a pill, an injection, or an inhaler? How many times a day do you take it? Do you need to take it with food, on an empty stomach? Can you cut it in half? That's where the real confusion and danger can creep.
So how in the world do you put a number on all of that? Well, researchers actually have a tool for it. It's called the Medication Regimen Complexity Index, or MRCI for short. It's basically a standardized system that takes all those messy details, the form, the frequency, the special rules, and boils them down into a single complexity score.
Which brings us right to the next piece of the puzzle, the massive challenge of trying to measure this invisible complexity, especially in a specific place like Korea. And here was the problem, the critical gap. Even with all these people taking so many medications, there was no proven standard way for doctors and pharmacists in Korea to measure any of this complexity. They couldn't easily flag which patients were struggling the most or who was most at risk. They were essentially flying blind. And this is where the story gets really good. This is where our hero, Professor Sunmin Lee, steps onto the scene to take on this exact challenge. So a research team, spearheaded by Professor Sunmin Lee at Yonsei University, looked at this problem and decided to tackle it head-on. Their mission was clear: take that international MRCI tool and scientifically adapt it so it would work perfectly in Korea. And let me tell you, this was not just a simple translation job. It was this incredibly meticulous scientific process. First, of course, they translated it into Korean, but then, and this is super smart, they had a completely different group translate it back into English to see if anything got lost or twisted in translation. Finally, a whole committee of experts went over it to make sure it was a perfect fit for Korea's healthcare culture.
And all of that intense work resulted in the birth of a brand new tool, specifically for Korea, the MRCIK. But creating a tool is one thing. Proving that it actually works, that's a whole other ballgame.
You see, for any scientific tool to be worth anything, it has to do two things. It's got to be reliable, which just means it gives you the same consistent result every time. And it has to be valid, meaning it's actually measuring the right thing. It's like a bathroom scale. You want it to show the same weight every time you step on it, and you want it to measure weight, not your height. So, was it reliable? Oh yeah. They tested it by having different pharmacists score the same prescriptions. They even had the same pharmacists score them again 2 months later. And the results were just incredible. Near perfect consistency. Statistically speaking, the scores were considered excellent. This tool was absolutely rock solid. Okay, so it's reliable, but was it valid? Did it measure what it was supposed to? 1,000% yes. The scores from their new tool lined up almost perfectly with the number of medications a patient was taking. And that makes total sense, right? More meds should equal a higher complexity score. It proved the tool was hitting the nail right on the head. So now we've got it, a powerful, validated tool ready to go. And this brings us to the most exciting part of the whole story. What did the MRCIK actually uncover when they put it to the test? And here it is, the big one, the aha moment. The team found a direct, measurable link between how complex a medication plan was and whether a patient suffered actual harm. Just look at these scores. Patients who had a bad drug reaction had a much higher average score, almost 32, compared to a score of about 27 for those who didn't. This was huge. For the first time, this hidden danger had a number attached to it.
Now, the average complexity score for all the patients in the study was 28.2. That number by itself might not mean much, but here's the kicker. When you compare it to studies from other countries, that score is really, really high. It was a huge clue that on average, patients in Korea were dealing with some of the most complex medication plans in the entire world.
So the question is, why? What was making things so complicated? Well, the researchers dug into their data and found a really specific reason. A huge driver of the high scores was all the extra instructions, specifically all the directions related to food. I mean, all those seemingly simple notes, take before a meal, take after a meal, wait 2 hours. They were all adding up and dramatically increasing the daily burden on patients. So what does this all mean? Where do we go from here? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the promise this research holds for a much safer tomorrow. The impact of this research is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Thanks to the MRCIEK, doctors and pharmacists can finally see the invisible. They can quickly identify a patient who's at high risk and actually step in to simplify things, maybe by changing a dosing time or finding a different medicine. This isn't just theory. It's a practical, real-world tool that can reduce harm and make medicine safer for everybody.
So the next time you look at a pill box, whether it's yours or someone you love, don't just count the pills. Think about the hidden complexity. This research gives all of us a new lens to see the problem and a powerful way to start solving it. And it leaves us with a really important question we should all be asking our doctors and ourselves. Can my medication plan be made safer, and can it be made simpler?